Hello, everybody. Dave Neal here, stand-up comic, host of The Dave Neal Show. Now, the story that just won't die. We have proof that Australian government is actively investigating Amber for perjury, which could serve up to 14 years. Listen, the Aussies don't mess around when it comes to border security. Obviously, it's an island. She smuggled her 2 dogs into the island and didn't do the mandatory quarantine and then potentially lied about it. We're going to get into that story. There's a new video of the legislative government talking about the active investigation there. As was mentioned, due to this court case, Amber and Johnny, not just the one in the U.S., in Virginia where Johnny won, but the court case in the U.K. where he lost against the Sun, which, by the way, has a petition to be revisited. In the sworn declaration, Johnny's property manager, Kevin Murphy, says that Amber threatened him to lie under oath. This story's wild. Let's get right into it. Do me a favor, follow me on Instagram at DNeals. Got stand-up shows coming into your neck of the woods, anywhere from Boston to New York, and hey, maybe even Paris. So make sure to follow me on Instagram to know where I will be performing. And also go to patreon.com/Dave Neal for private bonus content. So, like I said, I'm going to show you this sworn declaration here from Johnny's property manager. And I'm also going to share what Barnaby Joyce had to say about the dogs Pistol and Boo, and they need to bugger off back to the U.S. Now, this was a big deal. A lot of people weren't really paying attention to it. This was 7 years ago, but they were going to euthanize these dogs. This is a wild story, and his whole position was, hey, look, they don't deserve preferential treatment, which I actually kind of like. I kind of like that. But we're going to get into it. Let's just watch this minute-long clip, and then we'll go show some other clips of what's going down.
Question this morning in relation to Amber Heard. I can confirm the department is investigating that matter. So there was evidence presented in the London court case which suggested false statements were provided in the court case in Australia in 2016. So we are investigating that.
So what's the timeline? You expect that investigation decision made about?
As I understand it, the former state manager of Johnny Depp, Kevin Murphy, said in a witness statement that he told Heard, quote, by email, telephone and in person, that she could not take the dogs to Australia because the relevant paperwork and permits were not complete and the required 10-day quarantine arrangements had not been put in place. Murphy continued, Miss Heard later told the court in Australia that I had told her it was fine to bring the dogs into Australia. That is false. I never told her this.
Yes, so Senator, we understand that to be the case, or the evidence provided in the London court case, and giving a false testimony is an offence under the Crimes Act, so that is what we are now investigating.
So they're investigating a false testimony by Amber here. And again, credit to the YouTube channel Tulen, I believe it's called Tulen there, for providing this video. Amber may go 14 years in jail. Now, do I think this will happen? Absolutely not. But, it may be that she never goes back to Australia. Here's what Barnaby Joyce said, and I just love the accents here, when this initially happened, when he was like, get your dogs out of our country.
Which is a gentleman by the name of John Christopher Depp, 51 years old, otherwise AKA Jack Sparrow, and he has decided to bring into our nation 2 dogs without actually getting the proper certification and the proper permits required. Basically looks like he snuck them in. We found out he snuck them in because we saw them taking it to a poodle groomer. Now, Mr. Depp has to either take his dogs back to California or we're going to have to euthanize them. He's now got about 50 hours left to remove the dogs.
This sounds like a bad Netflix movie. You got 50 hours to get your dogs out of our country.
Now, he can put them on the same charter jet he flew out on and fly them back out of our nation. Why?
Now, I understand the sentiment here. I mean, but thinking that Johnny Depp's going to Australia to be some big jet setter is one thing. But the truth is that Amber brought the dogs in, and he kind of fell on the sword for her at the time.
Why is this important? There's diseases such as leishmania, rabies, leptospirosis, Alicia, and all these, we want to keep out of our country. There is a process if you want to bring animals in. You get the permits, they go into quarantine, and then you can have them. But if we start letting movie stars, even though they've been the sexiest man alive twice, to come into our nation, then why don't we just break the laws for everybody? So it's time that Pistol and Boo buggered off back to the United States.
Jeez. Got a
Department of Agriculture.
bugger off back to the United States. Oh boy, yeah. You got a 10-day quarantine for the dogs. Hang out, make some toast, spread some Vegemite on it, and wait your 10 days like the rest of us. So then Johnny Depp's dogs, Amber Heard, was repeatedly told she couldn't take pets to Australia, court hears. All right, so we're going to play that in a second, but how wild is this? They had like a helicopter.
The film star's dogs, Boo and Pistol, have had to leave Australia after they received a death threat for entering the country illegally. Earlier in the week, Agriculture Minister Barnaby Joyce said the pair would have to go back to the US or face being put down.
Buggered off back to the United States.
But the MP has faced a backlash of opposition to his threat. Clive Palmer disagrees with the ultimatum.
So the appropriate course of action is for these dogs to be put in quarantine for a couple of weeks and then be let back out. That way we'll save hundreds of jobs on the coast, thousands of jobs in relation to the filming of the movie.
Depp is in Australia.
I like that. He's saying, look, okay, yeah, she can be in trouble, but rather than kick the dogs out, they're already here, put them through the quarantine, and then let's move on with life. Obviously, not everyone can agree with the treatment here, but when you film Pirates of the Caribbean in Australia, that's bringing a ton of jobs to the local economy.
To film the fifth of his blockbuster Pirates of the Caribbean movies, Dead Men Tell No Tales. He also faces a formal interview with government officers into how the Yorkshire Terriers were allegedly smuggled into the country. Last month, Depp flew in the dogs on his private jet without declaring them to customs, but government officials followed a tip-off after they were seen on the way to a grooming salon. After getting a makeover at Happy Dogs Grooming, Pistol and Boo were spotted back at the house Depp is renting on Australia's Gold Coast.
There they...
Dog groomer Leanne Kent reacted to the news the dogs would be heading home.
I am a dog lover, obviously. And
what is this story? Anyway, when my dog goes to the groomer, he's not as patient. We got to have 3 people to hold him down because we got a moody basset hound. All right, so now here's where Kevin Murphy claims Heard pressured him to commit perjury, and we've got this clip I'm going to play for you from Stevie J. Raw's YouTube channel. Johnny's property manager, Kevin Murphy, says Amber threatened him. Let's watch.
Addressed Ms. Heard's requests to me to obtain false evidence for proceedings in Australia. I stand by that evidence and make this further statement in order to expand on that issue. My involvement in arrangements for the dogs to travel to Australia. I was involved in the process to ready the dogs for travel to Australia in April 2015, from start to finish. I hired the agency that facilitated the paperwork and scheduled the veterinary work that needed to be accomplished prior to the dogs travelling to Australia. I was also the person that cancelled the contract for services with All Pet Travel, the company dealing with the paperwork, after multiple conversations with Ms. Heard regarding the status of the necessary paperwork and the fact that the paperwork was not going to be completed in time for the dogs to travel to Australia. I refer to the invoice dated 9th of April 2015 from All Pet Travel at page 1 of KM2, which refers to Australia Travel Planning cancellation, and also a copy of a letter from Miss Debbie Rogers at All Pet Travel dated 16th of June 2020 is enclosed at page 2 of Exhibit KM2, which supports this fact. I began to have concerns in mid to late March 2015 that timing constraints were not going to allow the dogs to be vaccinated in time to travel to Australia by mid-April 2015. I expressed those concerns to Ms. Heard in person, by phone and in emails. Ms. Heard asked me on several occasions if there was any other way to get the dogs to Australia. I investigated different options, but they involved allowing the dogs to fly cargo on another flight. Ms. Heard would not allow that, so we ran out of options. At this point, Ms. Heard appeared to accept that they...
I don't blame her. Flying a dog cargo is inhumane. Do you hear about this rabbit? That, like, the biggest rabbit, this is a show rabbit that they flew, and the airline killed, and, accidentally, I'm assuming. But then before they could do an autopsy, sent it to the incinerator. Isn't this wild? I'm not going to let my dog sit on some hot tarmac in a cargo. No way, sorry, Bob.
There was nothing else that we could do, and that the dogs would not be able to travel to Australia in time for her flight. See the emails exchanged between Ms. Heard and I at pages 3 to 8 of Exhibit KM2.
Oh, he's got the receipts.
I explained to Ms. Heard on several occasions that bringing animals into Australia was like no other country that we had sent the dogs to before, in terms of length and specificity of the paperwork process and mandatory quarantining upon arrival. I also explained to Ms. Heard several times the fact that trying to take the dogs into Australia without completing the mandatory process was illegal and could result in very harsh penalties, including euthanizing the dogs, fines, and potential jail time.
Yeah.
Prior to Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp leaving for Australia, I notified Ms. Christy Dombrowski, Mr. Nathan Holmes, Mr. Stephen Duders, Mr. Jerry Judge, Mr. Malcolm Connolly, Mr. Sean Bett, and Mr. Joel Mandel that the dogs were not allowed to be taken to Australia. I further explained that the dogs should not be taken because it would be illegal and that there could be severe penalties. I made a point of discussing this matter because Ms. Heard had brought the dogs into the Bahamas without paperwork and vaccinations in other instances in July 2014, and in knowledge of the risks of doing so. I refer to photograph taken of Boo in July 2014 in the Bahamas at page 9 of Exhibit KM2, which I believe was that occasion. Due to Amber's inconsideration of the proper precautions required, there was a heightened awareness between me, staff, and the business office of proper paperwork being in place for future trips. At no time did I discuss this matter with Mr. Depp because he never wanted the dogs to travel on any occasion as he felt they would have better care in Los Angeles with staff. Upon getting to the morning following Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard's departure for Australia, I was shocked to learn that Ms. Heard had taken the dogs despite our discussions and my warnings of severe legal ramifications. I spoke with Jerry Judge shortly afterwards, who explained that Ms. Heard had insisted on bringing them to Australia. At Exhibit KM2, pages 10 to 11, are the messages exchanged between me and Ms. Dombrowski and Mr. Duders when they learned that Ms. Heard had gone to Australia with the dogs. My declaration for the Australia proceedings. As stated at paragraph 9 of my first witness statement, on or about October 2015, Ms. Heard requested that I make a false statement regarding the dog's illegal entrance into Australia. When I expressed that I was extremely uncomfortable with this, Ms. Heard said to me, "Well, I want your help on this. I wouldn't want you to have a problem with your job." It became very apparent to me that Ms. Heard was threatening my job stability unless I cooperated with providing a declaration that supported her false account for the Australia proceedings. Because of this, I felt extreme pressure to cooperate, despite knowing this would involve being untruthful. On October 13, 2015, I signed a declaration for the Australian proceedings that discussed the circumstances in which Ms. Heard brought her and Mr. Depp's dogs into Australia. See Exhibit KM2, pages 12 to 13. This declaration was prepared by Ms. Heard's US lawyer in this matter. That declaration contained statements that were not entirely truthful.
Ow.
It was not true that Ms. Kate James, Ms. Heard's assistant, was responsible for the paperwork and had not completed it. That this was the reason why Ms. Heard travelled with the dogs to Australia without the necessary paperwork. The true position is that I was responsible for the paperwork, which I could not obtain in time, and that Ms. Heard was fully aware of this in advance of travelling to Australia with the dogs. The lawyers with conduct of the matter were Ms. Heard's lawyer in the US, with whom I dealt primarily. Ms. Heard also had Australian counsel at Athurst. I was told by the US and Australian counsel that my statement in the terms that they had drafted on Ms. Heard's behalf would be integral to the outcome of the proceedings.
So she blamed her assistant, and he goes, "No, that's actually not the case. It was me, and I've got receipts to back it up."
Statement that was not entirely truthful. But as long as Ms. Heard was still with Mr. Depp, I did not feel able to take steps to remedy this without there being a risk to my job. Around late May 2016, Ms. Heard filed for divorce from Mr. Depp. A few weeks later, on June 23, 2016, I retained the services of the law firm Huang Yabra Singh and Meyer LLP, now Halpern May Yabara Gerberg LLP, in order to seek advice on retracting my declaration in the Australian proceedings. I felt I could take this step at this time because Ms. Heard no longer had control or influence over my job. This was my attempt to right a wrong. This effort was completely independent of Mr. Depp, and I personally incurred all of the legal costs.
Now, I'm sure Amber's side will say, "Oh, he's changing his side of the story now because he works for Johnny and it fits them." Absolutely, that's what she's going to say on her side, but, it adds up.
Please see the letter from HMYG confirming the time of my instructions enclosed at page 14 of Exhibit KM2. Through HMYG, I then retained an Australian barrister, Robert Rankin, on 14th of July 2016.
All right, so he's looking for he's covering his own ass, right? He's making sure. Now let's see if we can go to the different receipts here.
March 2016, to which I was copied, where Ms. McMillan is active in the role of Ms. Heard's assistant.
He says that Amber Heard was prepared to lie to Australian authorities.
Proceedings for contempt of court may be brought against anyone who makes or and 20.
So here's some of the receipts here. All Pet Travel. They got those receipts here. How much was it? $1,365, $1,300. to just get the pets flown there. Yikes. And here are some of the receipts. This was from Kevin Murphy to Amber. Hi, because of the paperwork process for pet travel to Australia, the time frame for the dogs to be able to travel there was always the end of April. We started the process quite some time ago. I believe the dogs are not able to enter. And then Amber's response, shoot, okay, we're out of options then because I don't know what else to do. And then his response, all right, so look, these are time stamped, pretty clear cut. He said, morning, would you allow them to fly cargo? She goes, F no. Let's see what she says in her response. Making sure you know that the dogs will not be allowed to fly commercial in the passenger compartment to Australia. They would have to go cargo. They do not make exceptions for service dogs to Australia. Make sure you understood. Been a very complex process. The all-in cost will be around $10K. Just wanted you to know, per our last discussion of the dogs travel, I should proceed, right? And then he said, I will have to continue the process for the dogs if they are going. There will be some non-refundable charges. And then she said, I'm sorry, but as I understood it, they weren't able to travel with Johnny. And since they couldn't travel with him, they won't be able to go at all. No. So what process needs to be continued exactly? And then he said, we never concluded the original conversation other than you saying no to cargo. If that means that the dogs will not travel, then I will discontinue the travel paper process. Thanks, Kay. And then she said, yeah, unless there's another way to get them there or get them on the plane with Jay, I can't send them in cargo. It's too dangerous. Hey, that's one thing I agree with her on. And there they are, the cute puppies. Not the puppy's fault. Amber knew all about the dog situation, right? They've landed. Haven't heard anything yet. Dogs are in. Yes, she knows. And then we have Christy here. Hi, just an FYI, they took the dogs without the proper paperwork. Bingo! Smoking gun. This is it, folks. Morning, just an FYI. Billy at 80 since yesterday. 12 people on Monday till 4 a.m. 20 people last night, 12 arriving. Boy, so quite the team they've got going on here. Let's wrap this up. And that's his sworn statement. All right. And of course, as this all went down, all we had at the time was this PSA that the Australian government made Johnny and Amber say pretty much at gunpoint. Here, watch this.
Australia is a wonderful island with a treasure trove of unique plants, animals, and people.
It has to be protected.
Australia is free of many pests and diseases that are commonplace around the world.
Imagine having to give this, in hopes that your pet doesn't get killed.
That is why Australia has to have such strong biosecurity laws.
And Australians are just as unique, both warm and direct. When you disrespect Australian law, they will tell you firmly.
I am truly sorry that Pistol and Boo were not declared. Protecting Australia is important.
Declare everything when you enter Australia.
Jeez.
Thank you.
Look at this. I mean, talk about an A-lister. Pistol and Boo. Oh my gosh. All right, what do you guys think? So we'll be following the story as it continues. We'll have to see, will the proceedings be televised? Who knows? We will follow it. Follow me on Instagram at DNeal's, private content on patreon.com/Dave Neal. We'll see you later. The story just gets stranger. Bye, everybody.